So she can maybe decode it, protect herself from it.
That seems to be the implication.
Yeah.
And what's really fascinating and kind of heartbreaking is the sheer burden this places on a 10-year-old.
Yeah.
Her notebook becomes this symbol, right? Her desperate attempt to impose some kind of intellectual order on the absolute chaos the adults have created.
It really highlights how complex and polluted everything has become. If the adults can't even handle these issues clearly.
Then a child is forced to secretly catalog them, just to try and stay afloat psychologically.
So she's not just smart, she's like a lonely, self-taught researcher studying political dysfunction, trying to build her own little fortress of facts against the noise.
A firewall, yeah. That's a good way to put it.
And the source does such a good job of showing how that big national fracture isn't just out there. It gets reflected, almost perfectly, right inside Vera's own home.
Yeah, the Schmolken-Bradford household is presented as this, like, perfect miniature version of the divided nation. Political disagreements, money stress.
Yeah.
It all feeds into the tension around the dinner table.
So we need to look at the adults closest to Vera, her father, Igor, and her stepmother and mom. How do their struggles kind of amplify the pressure on Vera?
Okay, so Igor, Vera's dad, he's facing this financial crisis. The source specifically says his magazine is collapsing. Huge financial strain.
A magazine collapsing. In this environment, you have to wonder what kind of magazine it was, right? Given the polarization.
That's a great point. If it was focused on, say, serious commentary, nuanced analysis, investigative journalism, maybe there's just no market for that anymore. In a world demanding hyper-partisan content or just noise.
So his professional failure might actually be a direct symptom of the political sickness the 5-3 Amendment represents.
It seems very connected, yeah.
Yeah.
He kind of embodies the adult who's paralyzed by economic anxiety. And we know what happens then, right? When people are just struggling to survive financially.
They retreat, become distant, stressed.
Exactly. The source suggests Igor's focus is completely external, just trying to keep his business afloat, which means there's very little energy left for, the emotional needs of his daughter, who's grappling with these huge existential questions.
So his financial stress directly fuels the tension at home. It makes the environment feel insecure for Vera, adding another layer on top of the political anxiety she's already absorbing.
Yeah. His preoccupation, maybe even his silence on some issues, could be just as damaging for her as, say, loud arguments about politics might be. It leaves her feeling even more alone with her worries.
Okay, and then there's Ann Mom, the stepmother. She's described quite differently, isn't she, as a liberal activist,
Yeah.
someone who fights loudly for justice.
Right, so on the surface, you'd think, okay, here's Vera's ally, the person who gets the injustice of the amendment, who can explain it all to her.
Yeah.
But the source introduces this really interesting critique. Ann Mom is shown as being deeply committed to justice, yes, but maybe on a very grand ideological scale, fighting for big principles, often things happening far away.
Abstract justice.
Kind of. And the critical flaw highlighted is that in her focus on these big battles, she often forgets to listen to Vera.
Ah, there's the rub. That's a powerful irony, isn't it? Fighting so hard for fairness out there in the world. But maybe missing the need for basic attention, for validation, for the child right there in her own home, who's literally trying to understand the words of injustice.
It's presented as this paradox. Her ideological commitment, her activism almost becomes a kind of, well, maybe a sophisticated form of emotional unavailability, or even neglect.
Wow.
Vera's asking these incredibly deep, relevant questions about politics, race, power, the stuff Ann Mom claims to care about most. But Ann Mom is perhaps too caught up in the idea of the fight, the external performance of activism.
To really tune into the specific individual anxiety of her stepdaughter sitting right there.
Yeah. It suggests that sometimes for adults, maybe fighting those big abstract battles feels easier or perhaps more rewarding.